like something ripped from the pages of a science fiction novel, but researchers are developing artificial limbs, wheelchairs and computers that can be controlled by thought. The devices were presented today at the American Association for the Advancement of Science meeting here in Washington. And it's from there that our science correspondent Palab Ghosh has sent us this report.
Got a good grip.
Jesse lost both his arms in an accident. On his left hand is a new kind of artificial limb. It gives him almost as much control as a normal hand, according to the researchers. With it, he can pick things up.
That was cool,
You know
wasn't
what? That right there is a first.
And move them around with incredible precision.
The ultimate goal of this program is that, we think about using the arm. We do it in a very natural way. So if I reach out to pick up a cup of coffee, I don't think about how I have to move my elbow and my shoulder and open and close my hand. I just reach out and pick up a cup of coffee.
I'm controlling this robot arm through this cyber glove and some sensors on my arm and elbow. You can see that it follows my movements precisely. Now, let's see if I can pick up this bottle. There you go. In Jesse's case, the arm is being controlled by the nerve signals from his chest. The next step is to connect the arm directly to the brains of patients. Here is a thought-controlled wheelchair being tested by researchers in Switzerland. The patient just thinks about moving left and it moves in that direction. Tiny electrical signals from the patient's brain are picked up by sensors in his cap.
We are working in different aspects of the technology, scientifically addressing how to make possible that people can communicate at different paces depending on their needs.
With each day, the technology is making small but important differences to Jesse's life. For example, he hasn't been able to put on his baseball cap by himself until now.
And voila.
Palab Ghosh, BBC News, Washington.
Well, as we've just seen, technology is blurring the distinction increasingly between man and machine. And this week there was a classic showdown along those lines on the American television game show Jeopardy! An IBM computer known as Watson basically trounced the show's top two contestants. But how far can a computer really go when it comes to acting human? That's the very question which author Brian Christian addresses in the most recent edition of the Atlantic Monthly. He joins us now from Philadelphia to discuss it. Brian, I want to get on your experiences in just a second, but let's start with Watson.
Yeah.
How much better is Watson than his predecessors at thinking like a human?
Well, it's fascinating. I mean, I think the contest definitely represents a milestone for AI in the sense that, with Google, you can type in an explicit set of language, explicit set of keywords and find things that contain those words, whereas Watson seems to be able to have this ability to infer what you mean by sort of talking around it. So if you ask for it, a city in, it's able to sort of get the gist of your question in a way that typical systems haven't been able to do.
Okay, is this what we know as artificial intelligence? And if it is, what's the real value in having computers think as humans?
Well, there's a sort of expression in the field that artificial intelligence is everything that we haven't done yet. So whenever there's a breakthrough like this, there are always people who come along and say, okay, well, that was impressive, but that isn't real AI. And I think part of what's interesting about it is that we're seeing these computers kind of take over these areas that were considered to be strongholds of human expertise. World knowledge, the ability to kind of assemble facts and put together, logical conclusions. But what's really interesting to me is that the progress of the program in that area really invites us to ask questions about what it means to be human. So what the IBM...
Okay,
yeah,
Brian,
sorry.
you just had a recent experience. You took on a computer and actually you did better than the computer. And you seem to be arguing that computers essentially will never match humans, that a human intelligence is always going to be superior, despite Watson.
Well, I don't know. never say never, I suppose, when it comes to technology. But what's interesting about the contest that I participated in, which is called the Turing test, is that unlike Watson, which is trying to beat the humans, the computers in the Turing test are attempting to imitate the humans to the point of being indistinguishable. So there's a sort of level of eeriness, I would say, about these programs passing themselves off as human rather than simply trying to beat us at a particular task. There's a sort of existential weirdness to that.
Okay, but
That's
you
very
seem to think
interesting.
basically that humans will not be beaten by computers in the end.
It's hard to say. I mean, what I think is really fascinating about the human mind is the ability to adapt itself to any given situation. So what I would have been really interested in with the Jeopardy contest is a battle between the show's writers and Watson. So once Watson started to hang on to a certain kind of question, what the human mind always wants to do is then think of a harder question or a more roundabout question.
Okay.
And it's that quality that I think defines humans.
Brian, Christian, we'll have to leave it there. Fascinating subject. We could go on a long time. Thank you so much for joining us. And still to